Doing Roro now. This you've already done in second mates, but this will be doing in detail. So you got various decks. बेटा आप अपना माइक बंद कर दो, वॉइस इको करती है नहीं तो. So you got various decks here, and the salient features of Roro vessel are that large number of decks because you got to carry a lot of vehicles and trailers and all heavy duty vehicles also, can be trains also, locos also. And the decks are subjected to localized load, so they are quite deep. The transverses are quite deep. The plating is thickened. The longitudinals are closer than actually there in other vessels. In Roro vessels, the longitudinal are much bigger and they are much closer. The next feature here is the transverse bulkheads are very few. So your decks are large for vehicles to move around, and you got localized points for lashing your vehicles. Then you got void spaces here in your Roro's vessels. And this is totally longitudinally framed because you have longitudinals in the side shell frames, longitudinal under deck, longitudinal in the bottom. The next salient feature here, you have a lot of ventilators here to release your gases, exhaust gases of your vehicles, and this is on the top deck. The freeboard is large in this, and they are subjected to a lot of heeling moments. So you have bilge keel here and stabilizer fins also. So stabilizer fins plus bilge keel will be there. Plus you will have anti-heeling tanks so that your heeling is corrected during loading. So these are your salient features, plus your we'll be doing the other parts here. What kind of lifts are there? A lot of ramps are there, stern doors, bow doors. So all these are your salient features of Roro vessel. So you have your duck keel here, ballast tank, and anti-heeling tanks here, port and starboard, and the various decks are there. So now we'll be doing the detailed structures. So these Roro vessels are subjected to winds because of freeboard is high, so their exposed area is more, so they are quite sensitive to wind. So they have large number of ventilators on exposed deck as per SOLAS requirements, and they carry stacks of containers on upper deck and wheeled cargo below deck. They have parking spaces for road trailers, semi-trailers. Of the width lane is about 2.9 meters. The width of cargo space should be multiple of 2.9 meters. You've got internal ramps here inside your Roro vessels, and the slope is between 1:7 to 1:10, which is about 8 degrees to 6 degrees. The width should be carefully selected for the cargo stored in each deck. Width this of the ramps is between 7 to 12 meters. And these ramps should be having anti-skid surface like these ones. So these are the ramps in the Roro vessel for the vehicles to go on the various decks. Alternatively, you can have lifts also. So number of decks increases with the ship size. For 15,000 tons, you've got 2 decks. Bigger ships have got 3 permanent decks. And in between your permanent decks, you've got movable car decks. So they are fitted in between your permanent decks. So you got bow doors, bow ramps, internal doors, hoistable car decks, hoistable car ramps. That's the bow door. Internal ramp is about inclination is 7 degrees. You got internal doors which are watertight for the subdivision of cargo spaces, and the interference is minimum. You got movable car decks. These are lightweight so that you can have storage of cars inside the deck for heavy vehicles. So your movable car decks can be hoistable with integrated lifting device, which can be electrically or hydraulically driven. And liftable car decks, they don't have integrated lifting mechanism, so they are moved by lifts of scissor type. So you got chorus car decks in certain vessels, which are stainless steel sandwich panels for McGregor. These are 3D truss cores built up between top and bottom panels, and they have 1/3 of the depth and about half the weight of conventional steel car decks. Now you can have cargo lifts for moving your vehicles between decks when your longitudinal deck space is limited. Then you will have lifts in between your various decks. So these configurations work as watertight hatch cover when secured in lowest position. So your lifts can be scissor, telescopic, or chain driven. Now you have certain guidelines for transporting road vehicles on ro-ro ships, and they apply for either long or short international voyages, unsheltered waters. They are applicable to road vehicles of authorized total mass of vehicle and cargo between 3.5 40 tons. You can have road trains with total mass not more than 45 tons. And for these, the securing points on your decks will be longitudinal spacing with less than 2.5 meters, transfer spacing between 2.8 to 3 meters. The minimum strength without permanent deformation on these decks is 20,000 newtons. Now for your solars, you have a total different kind of ventilation system, and that depends on number of passengers. So if your passengers are more than 36 on these ro-ro vessels, then your number of air changes should be at least 10 renewals per hour or 10 changes per hour. If they are less than 36 or equal to 36, then there are 6 changes per hour. पंप रूम में कितने चेंजेस होते हैं, ये ओरल में आपको पूछते हैं. हाउ मेनी चेंजेस पर आवर इन पंप रूम टैंकर? बताया था आपको, भूल गए, याद नहीं है किसी?
याद नहीं है सर.
हाँ बताया था ना.
आई थिंक 20 होता है.
हाँ करेक्ट है, 20 है. मिनिमम 20 चेंजेस पर आवर इन पंप रूम, and cargo tanks it is 30 changes per hour. If it is toxic, then there are 45 changes per hour. Duct keels and all, where they have permanent ventilation, then it is 8 changes per hour. When they are not having permanent ventilations, then it is 16 changes per hour. ये सब ओरल में आपको पूछते हैं, ventilation systems on ships. और आपको बताया भी था जब कई बार ओरल में ये पूछते हैं कि बाहर 2 ब्लोअर्स लगाए हैं, पंप रूम की कैपेसिटी है 50 क्यूबिक मीटर्स, तो एक ब्लोअर की कैपेसिटी मिनिमम कितनी होनी चाहिए? ये पूछा था आपको, पूछा था कि नहीं पूछा था? अब फिर बताओ, वही चीज फिर से पूछ ली अभी फिर नहीं आएगी. उस टाइम बताई थी आपने, बोला हाँ हाँ मुझे याद है, अब फिर पूछी फिर नहीं याद. मैंने आपको बताया कि पंप रूम का चेंजेस पर आवर इज 20 चेंजेस पर आवर. पंप रूम की कैपेसिटी 50 क्यूबिक मीटर है. 2 ब्लोअर मैंने पंप रूम के ऊपर लगाए, ईच की कैपेसिटी कितनी होगी?
50 होगी.
50 होगी. अभी क्या बोला है? 20 चेंजेस पर आवर. मैं फिर रिपीट कर रहा हूँ, पंप रूम का रेगुलेशन है, ये पंप रूम में 20 चेंजेस पर आवर होने चाहिए. 50 क्यूबिक मीटर उसकी कैपेसिटी है. ब्लोअर का साइज क्या होगा, या ब्लोअर की कैपेसिटी क्या होगी? 2 ब्लोअर है. सिंपल मैथमेटिक्स है यार, उसमें भी घबरा गए हो. यार मेट बन रहे हो।
सर
एरेरे
ब्लोअर
नहीं,
कैपेसिटी 1000 मीट्रिक क्यूब।
एक की पूछी मैंने, दो की नहीं पूछी, फिर कंफ्यूज हो गए।
एक की 500 होगी फिर सर।
बस यार सिंपल है यार,
8500 है।
भाई इतना
Yes sir,
सिंपल
500.
क्वेश्चन में आप जवाब नहीं दे पाओगे तो बताओ लानत है आपको चीफ ऑफिसर बनने की। सारा कुछ बताने के बाद भी अगर आप कैलकुलेशन, इतना सिंपल कैलकुलेशन भूल जाओगे और वो इंटीग्रेशन और वो सब करना शुरू हो जाओगे तो वो तो गड़बड़ हो गया ना। सिंपल मैथमेटिक्स है यार, 50 इंटू 20 कर दिया डिवाइडेड बाय 2, सीधी बात है यार, 500 हो गया। इसमें घबराने की क्या बात है यार। और इसी में ही आप लोग ओरल उड़ जाते हैं, इसी कारण होते हैं क्योंकि आप कॉम्प्लेक्स नंबर्स जानते हो, सिंपल नंबर आपको आंसर करना बड़ा मुश्किल हो जाता है। और सिंपल में ऐसे ही होता है, आजकल आपको कुछ कैलकुलेशन बोलो कैलकुलेटर निकालते हो, सिंपल मल्टीप्लिकेशन भी नहीं कर सकते, तो गड़बड़ हो गया ना। हर बार तो आपके हाथ में कैलकुलेटर तो होगा नहीं। सब्जी लेने जाते हो कैलकुलेटर लेके जाते हो क्या? और वो सब्जी वालों को फटाफट कैलकुलेशन हो जाता है, हम लोग वो सोचते रहते हैं कि कितना देना है कितना लेना है, और उन लोग रोज का काम है, उनको कैलकुलेटर का कुछ पता नहीं, फटाफट कैलकुलेशन हो जाता है उनका। सिंपल चीजें बेटा ध्यान रखा करो, आप लोग कॉम्प्लेक्स में घुसते हो, सिंपल भूल जाते हो। चलो कोई बात नहीं, अभी टाइम है आपका एग्जाम का, बट अप्रैल बैच का तो अभी एग्जाम होने वाला है, अगले महीने फिर ओरल होगा, तैयारी तो शुरू करो भाई।
सर रिटर्न करवा दीजिए सर पहले एमएमडी से, ओरल भी दे देंगे।
रिटर्न में क्या तकलीफ हो रही है क्या? आप लोगों का पासिंग मार्क्स
रिटर्न में तो
कितना है?
तकलीफ रिटर्न
कितना
में तो
तकलीफ है?
तकलीफ
मेरे
नहीं है सर,
पेपर में
लेकिन एग्जाम होगा तब तो।
एग्जाम तो हो रहा है ना बेटा, अभी सारी फाइल सबमिट हुई है फेज 1 की, तो उनके एग्जाम
कहाँ
हो
सर,
रहे हैं तो आपके नहीं होंगे?
रिजेक्ट कर दिए सर।
हाँ मुझे पता है रिजेक्ट हुआ है, फिर आप लोग पूछ रहे थे कि उसका ट्विटर नंबर हैंडल क्या है, ये सब पूछते रहते हो आप लोग, तो फाइल बराबर नहीं करोगे तो रिजेक्ट
तो
हो ही
वही ना,
जाएगी।
अभी जो जो सीन लग रहा है मतलब काफी कुछ समझ में नहीं आ रहा। वही कैप्टन सरीन भी कल यही बोल रहे थे, कुछ पता नहीं है कि होगा कैसे होगा, क्योंकि फाइल ही रिजेक्ट कर दी उन लोगों ने।
अब उनका मंशा क्या है कुछ पता नहीं है यार, उनकी मंशा का कुछ नहीं भरोसा, दे आर ऑल डिपेंडिंग ऑन मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ शिपिंग, वो क्या स्टैंड लेती है, क्योंकि मिनिस्ट्री भी डेली स्टैंड चेंज करती है ना, नथिंग इज फिक्स्ड। अगर ये डेल्टा वेरिएंट फिर तेज हो गया तो क्या करोगे, फिर सारा बंद हो जाएगा। डेल्टा वेरिएंट
हाँ
अभी
सर,
देखो बाकी कंट्रीज में तेज हो गया है।
डेल्टा प्लस है, अभी डेल्टा प्लस
अब
आया,
वही
अभी
डेल्टा
फिर
वेरिएंट है। अब
मैक्स
आपकी
आएगा,
इतनी
फिर प्रो
वैक्सीन
आएगा।
आई है, बेटा ऐसा है वैक्सीन के साइड इफेक्ट्स भी आपको नहीं पता लॉन्ग टर्म क्या है, ले तो सब रहे हैं, इस वैक्सीन से 3 साल बाद क्या होगा आपको आपको नहीं पता, ये किसी को भी नहीं पता है। ब्रेन की प्रॉब्लम होगी, मेमोरी लॉस होगी, सब होगा, फिर आप लोगों का यही सिंपल कैलकुलेशन में गड़बड़ हो जाएगी, यही हो रहा है, होने वाला है। वैसे भी इसमें रिसर्च ने बोला है कि ग्रे मैटर पे कोरोना ने अटैक करके ग्रे मैटर कम कर दिया लोगों का, तो क्या वैक्सीन में जो जो आपका ऑर्गेनिज्म है वो भी आपका लॉन्ग टर्म में ग्रे मैटर कम नहीं कर देगा? तो बहुत कुछ हो सकता है। सब लोग अभी ऐसा है ना, अंधेरे में तीर मार रहे हैं, चलो चला लो तीर यार, कितनी पब्लिक है, लगा लो तीर, चलानी जितनी जितनी तीर चलानी चला लो, क्योंकि साइड आपका क्या है, जो ज्यादा सेंसिटिव है उसको वैक्सीन लगा दो वो वहीं खत्म हो जाएगा। तो बहुत कुछ है, तो पॉलिसीज विल चेंज, एवरी डे विल चेंज। आज आपका सारा फाइल एक्सेप्ट हो गया, कल बोल देंगे अब एग्जाम ही नहीं है, फिर क्या करोगे, फिर मुश्किल। दूसरा है कि अगर आप यहाँ कोविडशील्ड लगा लिया, बाहर बोलेंगे भाई आप जा ही नहीं सकते ज्वाइन करने के लिए यूरोपियन यूनियन में, वहां भी मुश्किल हो गया, तो फिर लगाओगे क्या, फिर मुश्किल है, सेल कैसे करोगे, फिर मुसीबत हो गई, तो सारा गड़बड़ चल रहा है। अब essential features of ro-ro vessel is uninterrupted clear decks by which are got only doesn't have any transverse bulkheads. Deck heights को accommodate करना पड़ता है for various vehicles carried. Transverse strength is maintained by fitting web frames which are close along with deep beams, and the frames are fitted every fourth frame apart, so the distance between the rings is 3 meters apart here. The lower decks are divided by watertight bulkhead having hydraulical operated and cleated sliding bulkheads to facilitate movement of vehicles. Then your thickness of deck is increased to take concentrated loads. There is reduction in spacing of longitudinals and the size of longitudinal is increased. You have a center line of row of pillars here because they have to take the weight because transverse bulkheads are not there. Ramps are fitted at bow and stern for loading and discharging of vehicles. Movable ramps have got larger area, better advantage because they have greater loading area. Fixed ramp से ये होता है कि your space is cannot be utilized otherwise. Another feature of Ro-Ro vessel is anti-heeling system. In this, your ship will deduct your heeling angle and compensate the same, and that will allow your vessels to continue loading and unloading without stopping in between for list correction. So that will save your time in port. So this diagram is there. This is that anti-heeling system. So I'll explain that. What is this type of anti-heeling system? So ballast tanks are internally connected to each other by means of pipeline, automatic valves, control systems. So when your ship heels, the heeling sensor will send signals for change, and this change in the heeling angle is compensated by auto transferring the water from heel side to the other side, and that will make the ship upright faster. Then you have level control switches in the ballast tank involved with anti-heeling system to avoid low level or overfilling and hence overpressurizing of the tanks. You've got two types of anti-heeling systems. One is pneumatic type and the other one is water pump type. Now in the pneumatic type, you have air purging system that regulates the valve system by forcing air on top of ballast tank. So the air is forced on one tank is purged from the other, making the water rapidly flow from pressurized to the purged tank. And this transfer of water will make the ship upright in quick time. Second type is water pump system that will consist of electrical motor driven water pump, and that is reversible or non-reversible, and that's connected by remote control valves and can direct ballast water flow in between the various both the tanks. Now your advantages of anti-heeling system is it is safer, rapid cargo loading and unloading can take place, harbor time is shortened, port dues are reduced, your damages to ramp and rolling cargo and containers is reduced, and it ensures safety of ship and personnel. So this is a water pump type. It will pump water from here to here. In purging type, air is purged on top and the water is forced into the other tank. So instead of starting the pump, the air is purged from one tank to the other tank. So there's your starter panel here. The CCR is the main control, inclinometer is there. You've got starboard and port tank, and then you can pump water or you can purge the tank with air supply. So either way you have the systems here. Now we'll do cellular containers and then hatchless cellular containers. So this is a cellular container where you have cell guides inside the hatches. On top, they are loaded after closing the hatch cover. And your regular lashings are there, bridge fitting, twist locks, bar lashing. These are all fitted on top. So container ships are specifically built for transporting containers inside cargo holds and exposed decks, and they're categorized by ship size, container storage methods, and loading and unloading. Incidentally, Evergreen vessel Ever Given is still there in Swiss waters. They're haggling with the dues, and I think they had demanded very high dues. I think 80 million or something they had demanded. Now they're reduced by half. So the haggling is still going on for Ever Given. Now the typical categories of container ships are by size. So these are big intercontinental container ships like Ever Given, divided into ultra large container ships with dimensions over the limits of new Panamax containers with length about 397, breadth is 56, draft 15.5. And these are like your Emma Merce class or Evergreen vessels, which are carrying over 15 to 20,000 TEUs. Then you have over Panamax types. These are too large for passing through Panamax. They have breadth around 40 meters, capable of stowing up to 18 rows of containers on exposed deck and up to 16 rows on cargo holds. Capacity is 4,000 TEUs. New Panamax have got breadth of 43 and carry about 10,000 to 14,000 TEUs. Then you have Panamax type, which have maximum width less than 32.5, which is the width of Panama Canal, and they can pass through your Panama Canal. And they stow between 2,000 to 3,500, up to 13 rows of containers and 5 tiers on exposed deck. Inside hold up to 11 rows and 8 tiers. Then you got feeder container vessels, which are small, medium-sized vessels starting from 200 TEU, specialize in transporting cargo from small ports to large ports. And structural design of a container ship of 3,100 TEU according to concept of general ship for use, because it's not profitable for large container vessels to go in small ports. So the feeders can be used, which have cargo gears, and they can also be multi-purpose vessels. Then you categorize by loading and unloading facilities. Container ship with cargo gear, majority of this can stow containers less than 3,000. They'll have jib cranes for cargo handling and twin cranes for twinning. Then you have gearless container vessels, which are not installed on board. They are handled by cargo handling equipment in the jetties. And the next type is a hatch coverless container vessels or open top container vessels. Now these type don't have hatch covers except on the bow areas or number 1 or number 2 hatch. Others don't have hatch covers. And the containers stored on exposed deck are fixed by cell guides, which are installed inside holes from inner bottom to the uppermost container level on the deck. Advantage of this type is reduction in workload because you don't require lashing, you don't require opening and closing of hatches. Plus, the efficiency of cargo handling is improved because you can also load high cube containers without any problem here. Now, the general arrangement of container ships is affected by several factors like the size, the container handling facilities. A self-sustaining feeder vessel under exposed deck, the hull is divided into compartments by watertight bulkheads. The compartments which are located from collision bulkhead till front bulkhead of the engine room are specified to as cargo containers or cargo holds. Superstructure is situated above the aft peak in the aft part of container ship. Structure of watertight bulkhead is extended over 4 to 5 frames, and then you can have your cranes fitted there. For big post Panamax container vessels, you have the location above the engine room moved about 1/3 the length of the ships to improve your navigation bridge visibility, so that your compartments can be dedicated for storage of cargo containers in aft part of the ship between aft peak and engine room. Now, midship section of Panamax is constructed with single deck, double bottom, as well as double side shell. Now, this is your midship section, which you got to draw of container vessel or cellular container vessel. And here you have a torsion box to counteract your torsion forces. That's the upper deck. It's the shear strake. And grade E and high tensile steel is there, 35 mm. Then you have this is all your EH grade, and then you have passageways here. These are your longitudinals and stiffeners are fitted. The various decks are there. So fifth deck, fourth deck, second deck, first deck, and all. And then you have build strake here. This plating is 24 mm E grade. Then the bottom shell is 24 mm D grade, and here you have E grade 27.5.
सर इसमें तो
The
हाई टेंसाइल यूज नहीं होता है ना सर कंटेनर्स में?
यहाँ हो रहा है ना, यहाँ हो रहा है ना, देखो यहाँ हो रहा है।
सर एच लिखा
यहाँ
नहीं है। अच्छा हाँ ऊपर है
यहाँ
EH लिखा हुआ है।
और सेलर गाइड्स में भी EH लिखा है, देखो ये यहाँ भी EH है, यहाँ भी EH है। तो हाई टेंसाइल क्योंकि न्यूट्रल एक्सिस सबसे ज्यादा, एक्चुअली यहाँ भी हाई टेंसाइल होगा, यहाँ लिखा नहीं है। हियर ऑल्सो विल बी हाई टेंसाइल। बॉटम शेल चाहे हो नहीं, कील प्लेट तो होगा। कार्बोर्ड स्ट्रेक भी हाई टेंसाइल होता है। चलो इसमें नहीं दिया है, अलग अलग वेसल का अलग होता है। यहाँ दिया हुआ है देखो, longitudinal upper deck grade is EH, then your shear strake is EH, top of longitudinal bulkhead is EH, longitudinal combing is EH, ये भी EH दिया हुआ है, top of longitudinal this is also EH. So ये सारे EH grades हैं because of your high tensile stress here. तो ये आपके guides are also, because these guides will take a lot of loads. They have to take a lot of stress here. Then you see a lot of girders are there. Number of girders are increased here. So these are not stiffeners, but number of girders are increased because they have to take the load of the containers. So number of girders are increased here. And this is double hull. And this is the inner longitudinal bulkhead, which also has your longitudinal. So this is longitudinally framed container vessel, and that's your build strake. तो यहाँ देखो इसकी थिकनेस कम होगी 11.5, यहाँ 25 है और यहाँ 15 है और यहाँ बढ़ गई। तो डिस्टेंस फ्रॉम न्यूट्रल एक्सिस जितना ज़्यादा होगा उतनी ज़्यादा स्ट्रेस होगा। प्लस यहाँ तो टॉर्शन स्ट्रेसेस, यहाँ टॉर्शन स्ट्रेसेस बहुत होगा, तो ये टॉर्शन के बॉक्स जो है दैट विल आल्सो बी हाई टेंसाइल स्टील। इसमें टॉर्शन बॉक्स नहीं बना, इट विल बी हियर।
और थिकनेस भी
टॉर्शन जो स्टार्टिंग टॉर्शन जो होता है वहाँ बेसिकली अंडर डेक होता है, दैट इज hollow. The box girder is hollow because you can't have your stability problems there with a solid box just below deck. So this will be a hollow area. Now the width of double side shell is about 2.5 meters to provide sufficient space for passageway and tanks. However, some designs are reduced to 1 to 1.5 to increase number of cell guides, container cells. But that can create structural issues. So your class accordingly has to approve. So the spaces are provided by double bottom height is dedicated to tanks. So that's your DB here. Arrangement of structural members is influenced by arrangement of containers because your containers have got fixed dimensions. So your frequently framing system adopted for this kind of ship is longitudinal. So your framing is longitudinal throughout the midship section. DB, your spacing in bottom longitudinal side girders matches the spacing of containers in the hold above. ये देखो ना यहाँ ये girder का spacing is matching with the container width here. Number of containers यहाँ, that is depending on number of girders here. So that is matching. So your containers, in this way, containers land on adjacent girders. The bottom longitudinal side girders and floors form the grillage type of structure. अब वो grillage आपको दिखाएंगे कैसे होता है. This is a grillage type of structure अभी दिखा रहे हैं. So this is the grillage type of structure which is formed, and that provides the strengthening here. ये देखो, number of girders are more here. So container will be fixed basis coming on a girder or not. So that is number of these structures are more from the grillage type.
सर जो गर्डर्स है वो नंबर ऑफ कंटेनर के जितने भी वो रोज है उसके
हाँ,
अकॉर्डिंग है ना, इक्वल टू द
रो में
नंबर ऑफ
जितने
कंटेनर.
हाँ, नहीं तो अदरवाइज जो नॉर्मल गर्डर होते हैं 20 मीटर की ब्रेथ होती है, ईच होता है एक तरफ एक एक, और 20 मीटर ज्यादा होता है तो एवरी सेक्शन पोर्ट एंड स्टारबोर्ड विल बी 2 बट यहाँ नंबर ऑफ गर्डर्स आर इंक्रीज बेसिस नंबर ऑफ कंटेनर्स. So the web frame stringers on the side shall form the grillage to support your side between the bulkheads. Now these torsion boxes, they are available on the top, and they are basically providing that compensating your torsion stresses. So they are formed by thick plates, that is the deck plate, the shear strake, upper plate of longitudinal bulkhead, and the second deck. They form the section of the continuous box girder or torsion box. So these plates are reinforced by flat bar stiffeners, and in most container vessels you have high tensile steel used for the plates as well as stiffeners in the longitudinal box girders to reduce their thickness. So here are your torsion boxes just below the deck. And this is double hull, and your these platforms are there. These are your stringer plates. So they form the passageway. So that's your DB here. So this is your torsion box. And that's the grillage formed. So torsion, which you have already been studying in stability, is when you are heading towards the head sea and you alter by 45 degrees, then the water gets accumulated here, which is going to give you a twisting moment towards the starboard side. The water accumulated here because of your alteration tends to come back to the original position and twisting the vessel. So you got to fit a torsion box here. So that is the twisting which is due to the torsion of the vessel, and that is more because of your decks are very large, and deck opening cut is very large, and your breadth of the vessel is quite more than 40 meters. Then your torsions forces will be more. So you're fitting torsion boxes right from aft peak bulkhead till forward collision bulk, just under deck. Now you have continuous longitudinal hatch combings, and these contribute to longitudinal strength and permit reduction on the main deck thickness. So your combings should have good continuity. The corner should be rounded, which you've already done in second mates, and they should be tapered to avoid cracking due to discontinuity stress. So here you have high tensile steel also. Your longitudinal girders, they have 2 or 3 hatch covers spanning across the hatch opening, require arrangement of 1 or 2 longitudinal hatch girders to support inboard side of covers. Tops of these girders are coincided with top level of combing. So the girders are either continuous or non-continuous when they are under the hatches. Non-continuous hatch girders are preferable to avoid potential cracking problem, which can be resulting from connection to transverse bulkhead and continuous girders. Now, elimination of hatch girders allows additional container cell and increase below deck storage, but everyone tries to reduce all the structures, but then your class comes into play because your strength has to be maintained. Now we come to the hatch corners. These are the hatch corners we are talking of, these corners. They can be either rounded, they can be either elliptical, or they can be cut like that, which is the modern type. Rounded requires more strength, so your plating insert plate has to be thicker. If it is elliptical, then you don't require insert plate, and the thickness will not be more. So nowadays they are trying to reduce this length also to reduce your light chip weight and the cost. So this is the advanced type of your hatch corners. So in case longitudinal coamings or hatch girders are continuous, a radius is provided in the hatch corner to reduce high concentration stress. The common corner designs are circular or elliptical, which you've drawn in your second mates. They have thicker plate inserted in main way to reduce your stress. Insert plane is about 10% to 20% thicker than surrounding main deck plating. So elliptical, you will not have so much thickness, but circular, of course, thickness is more. Hatch corner design is particularly important to avoid high warping stress from the torsion load. That's why this hatch corner is important, otherwise these will crack. And your transverse bulkheads. So in the cargo hold, the transverse bulkheads are arranged to suit storage of containers and support both the double bottom and side structure. Adequate subdivision for 40 feet container holds is commonly used, and each complete cargo hold is divided in two parts by pillar bulkhead, so that each part is dedicated for storage of 140 of two 20-feet containers. So only the transverse bulkhead, which is limited hold, should be watertight, and the structure of the bulkhead is composed by vertical frameworks and stringers. So that is the grillage which I've talked about. That's the longitudinal deck girders, the box beam here, longitudinal bulkhead, hatch side end coamings here, side stringers here, DB, double bottom girders, DB tank, and these are your longitudinal girders here, inner bottom, bottom plating, and the stringer deck. So these are your stringer decks. Now the structural material. The increase in size of container ships has led to increase of thick plating up to 85 to 100 mm in certain cases. So high tensile steel of yield strength exceeding 390 Newton per mm square is adopted in certain structural regions of these container ships, like your deck coaming, for reduction of your steel weight, as well as avoid thicker plates and associated welding problems. Additionally to the deck and coaming plates, the plates of outer bottom as well as bottom longitudinal sides are built with high tensile steel, where the focus is on strength against the buckling. So this is your cargo hold of a cellular container vessel. Here you have the cell guides, with the hatch cover, and there's the hatch coaming and the supports of hatch coaming. Then you have the cleating devices here, vents here, your wall ventilators here, and the stack covers and container foundation, all those things are there. So that's your typical cargo hold of a cellular container vessel. So now we'll do your open hatch container vessels, or hatch coverless cellular container vessels. Now in this hatch coverless cylinder container vessels, you don't have hatch covers in the majority of hatches. Only in the forward section where you have more water coming up, they are having hatch covers. Otherwise, beyond 0.25 L from forward collision bulkhead, they don't have any hatch covers. So hatchless container vessels appeared around 1990, and starting you had 4 hatchless container vessels of Norwegia. They started with 2007 80 TEU vessels, and except for hold 1 and 2, which are equipped with pontoon hatch covers and carry hazardous material, the other hatches don't have any hatch covers. So they had usual routing between Europe and Far East, and they had heavy tropical rain. So shipping company decided to equip holds 3 to 7 by 12 rain protection roofs of lightweight steel construction. Each rain roof rests on the transverse coaming on container cell guides secured by rapid fastening. And the coamings extend in case to highest container, which is in some holds about 12 tiers high. Before and after cargo handling, the roofs had to be removed and replaced by onshore lifting gear. And these roofs were part of the aerodynamic hull shape. And wind tunnel testing basically is done for your various structures like your cars and vehicles and ships and all, and aircrafts. So there's a wind tunnel created and air forces are checked on these for aerodynamics. So that reveals the shape of your forecastle deck in conjunction with rain roofs and deck house will save your fuel. And the rain roofs protect not only the stored containers but the ship as well, as large quantity of rain and water holes. And your holes can cause stability problems. So therefore, you are now supposed to have 3 permanent bilge pumps other than the required bilge pumps of your ship. Normal ships have got bilge and ballast system, that is separate. Open top container vessels have got, other than bilge and ballast system, 3 high powered bilge pumps. So these are your cell guides of your open top container vessels. So here everything is open and these cell guides extend on deck. No hatch covers and then they can load like that. You see the view from top, Monkey Island view. Only these 2 forward holes have got hatch covers which have containers on top after closing the hatch. Rest, they are all open to sea. So your bilge pumps have to be running continuously. So that's the midship section of hatch coverless container vessel being built. Everything is same except the structures on top. So your other structure is exactly the same, only that you have the structures on top instead of hatches or hatch covers. Hatches are there, but there are no hatch coamings here. So you have structures on top. So these are exactly the same, only the structures are made on top. Now, what are the advantages? Is your hatch cover weight is reduced. So your dead weight is reduced. Plus, these hatch cover weight basically also improves your stability because the weight is reduced, which was on certain height. Second is elimination of hatch covers has excluded the need for opening and closing hatches. So your turnaround time in port and operation cost of cargo is reduced. So the fixed hatch container guides are not terminating on hatch coaming, but they extending to the full deck of deck height to load the container till the top. So this provides better securing for containers, eliminates the need for manually installed lashing cables and rods, and individual vertical stacks of containers are always accessible totally independent of other stacks. So this contrasts with your conventional container ship where containers on deck had to be moved to permit hatch covers to be lifted. Then your maintenance of hatch cover is not there, so again your costs are reduced. Now on the surface it will appear that it's impossible to operate a vessel without hatch covers because International Convention of Load Lines does not allow this. But there are certain things like exemptions. What are these exemptions? Is administration may exempt any ship which embodies features of a novel kind from any provision of this kind of convention, and the application of which will seriously impede research into development of features and incorporation of ships engaged in international voyages. Therefore, administration allows any exemption under this article communicated to IMO. So the international load line exemption certificate shall be issued to the ship which is exempted for hatch cover. So the MSc session also put emphasis on procedure of model test for these kind of vessels along with damage and intact stability because the hatch cover is open. Then what kind of hold bilge dewatering system required, what kind of fire protection systems required, what kind of storage for dangerous goods, these kind of vessels. So there are certain stringent tests which require wave height should be approximately 8.5 meters at most unfavorable realistic period. So they should take that strength. Wind generated spray also had to be simulated. Different wave directions had to be included in the simulation. Different speeds and heading of the vessel, including dead ship, condition was required. Different loading conditions to be tested, keeping in mind your unfavorable hold in terms of shipping seawater. And tests have to be performed with unrestrained self-propelled models. This I'll show you afterwards. After we've done your past papers for April batch, then I'll be showing you all the model testing is done. Then your damage stability open top containers are same for conventional ships with hatch covers. That means the vessels have to comply with international regulations regarding your damage stability and watertight subdivision. Intact stability of open top containers requires ships staying afloat under all conditions of hold flooding, empty, partially loaded, or fully laden. FSC of water in exposed hold must be taken into account, and fully laden vessel must be maintaining positive residual stability in all cases of cargo holds being flooded completely up to your hatch combing height. So it provides substantial security in other safety considerations. So open ships naturally allow a certain amount of water to enter the holds, and this may be rainwater and tropical rainstorm, spray or sea washing over deck. So there you require open top ships are supposed to have 200 to 300 high pedestals on tank top to which your bottom containers are stored so that the water doesn't enter the containers. Plus, these vessels are equipped with 3 independent bilge pumps, each capable of pumping maximum hourly rate of seawater in seagoing conditions as per the model test. I think यहाँ तक रोक देते हैं and then we'll continue. Slide 23 तक है. Next class will next week. यदि कल आपकी क्लास होगी तो उसको खत्म कर देंगे and got LPG LNG. So we'll complete midship sections and next week we'll start with your past papers. ठीक है, we'll take a break now.
Okay, sir.
Okay.